Okay, so get this. By the time you hit 30, you've already lost like 90% of the eggs you were born with.
Wow.
Yeah, the countdown starts way earlier than most people realize.
It does.
So that's why today we're doing a deep dive into estrogen and menopause and like unpacking how this hormone impacts pretty much every system in the female body
Yeah.
and what happens when it starts to decline. We'll cover perimenopause, menopause common symptoms, and what you can do to kind of optimize your health during this time.
Awesome.
And to help us navigate all of this, we're drawing insights from an interview with a leading menopause specialist, Dr. Mary Claire Haver.
Oh, yeah. Dr. Haver's great.
So to kick things off, let's talk about how estrogen is constantly fluctuating throughout the month.
Yeah. So it's not just this static thing.
Right.
Dr. Haver actually compares estrogen levels at their peak around ovulation to being pregnant with triplets.
Whoa.
Yeah. So that's a huge surge.
That's wild. I mean, no wonder we feel so different at different times of the month.
Exactly. And it gives us a little taste of what's to come as our estrogen production declines with age.
So are you saying that those like mid-month slumps some of us experience, the brain fog, irritability, bloating?
Yes.
That's all tied to estrogen dipping?
It is. It's like a little preview of perimenopause and menopause.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, those dips are temporary during our cycle, but they can become more pronounced and frequent as we transition into menopause.
Gotcha. And speaking of perimenopause, I feel like that often starts earlier than we think.
Yeah, it's typically defined as like the 7 to 10 years before periods stop altogether, and it can start as early as our mid-30s.
Wow. So like if you're in your late 30s or early 40s and your periods are starting to get irregular,
Yeah.
that could already be perimenopause.
It could be. And it's not just about wonky periods either. It can affect everything from our sleep and mood to our joints and even our gut health. Yeah, it's a time of major hormonal fluctuations, which can cause a whole range of symptoms that often get overlooked.
So basically, if you're noticing changes in your body, and it's not just about your period,
Right.
don't just brush it off as getting older.
Exactly.
It might be perimenopause.
Knowledge is power. The more we understand about what's happening, the better we can advocate for ourselves.
For sure. Now let's talk about menopause itself. How do we actually define that moment?
So officially, menopause is marked 1 year after your last period.
Okay.
But it's not a finish line. It's more like a new chapter. Some symptoms might ease up while others stick around.
So it's not like this sudden overnight change.
Right. It's gradual, and those hormonal shifts continue even after the 1 year mark.
Interesting. And how much does estrogen actually decline by the time we reach menopause?
So get this. By menopause, we have less than 1% of the estradiol.
Wow.
Which is the most potent type of estrogen that we had at 25.
It has a drastic drop.
It is. It really highlights how powerful this hormone is and how much our bodies rely on it.
Yeah, so we've got this major estrogen decline happening, and it's impacting us on multiple levels. And Dr. Haver doesn't shy away from using some pretty vivid imagery to describe these changes, right?
She doesn't. For example, she describes the postmenopausal vagina as a Sahara desert if it's lacking estrogen.
Okay, that's a powerful image.
It is. It drives home the point that things can change down there.
And it's not just about dryness either, right?
Yeah.
Estrogen deficiency can actually lead to thinning of the vaginal tissues, which can make sex painful.
It can, and it's important to remember that these are common experiences.
Absolutely.
And there are ways to address them.
Yeah. So we've talked about vaginal health, but what about other areas of the body? How else might we be affected by this estrogen decline?
Well, think about things like, are you experiencing dry skin, joint pain, sleep problems, or mood swings?
All things I've definitely noticed.
Right, those could all be linked to declining estrogen levels.
It's like connecting the dots.
It is. We need to look at the bigger picture to see how it all fits together.
Now, one of the most talked about aspects of menopause is hormone therapy, or HRT. And it seems like there's so much conflicting information out there,
There is.
leaving many women unsure about whether it's right for them.
Definitely. And Dr. Haver has some strong opinions on this. She really challenges the way we think about HRT.
Interesting. So what does she say?
Well, she's very clear that a lot of the fear around HRT comes from flawed research and media hype
Okay.
that has demonized it.
So she thinks most women are actually good candidates for HRT.
She does.
Yeah.
And she even argues that it can protect against heart disease.
Wow, that's pretty controversial.
It is. It goes against what many of us have been told to believe.
So are you saying women are being denied a potentially valuable tool for managing menopause?
That's the question she raises. It's something each individual needs to explore with their doctor,
Right.
weighing the potential benefits and risks.
But it's important to have all the information.
Absolutely. We need to make informed decisions.
For sure. And even if HRT isn't the right fit, there are still other things we can do to manage menopause.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Dr. Haver outlines a whole range of strategies like nutrition, exercise, stress management, and sleep hygiene.
It's a holistic approach.
It is.
So let's dive into those strategies.
Yep.
Starting with diet, what are Dr. Haver's top recommendations?
She emphasizes 3 key nutrients: fiber, magnesium, and omega-3 fatty acids.
And those are all things we can get through food.
They are, think legumes, berries, seeds for fiber, pumpkin seeds, spinach for magnesium, and fatty fish like salmon or flax seeds for omega-3s.
Gotcha. And what about exercise? Does she have any preferences?
She's a huge advocate for strength training, especially during menopause.
Okay.
It helps build muscle mass and bone density, both of which naturally decline with age and those hormonal changes.
She basically says ditch the 80s cardio queen mentality and focus on building strength.
Exactly. It's about shifting our focus from just being thin to prioritizing strength and functionality.
Love that. And she even mentions a specific type of magnesium supplement that can be beneficial.
She does. She recommends magnesium glycinate.
Okay. And what's so great about that type?
Well, it's known to help with sleep and anxiety. And Dr. Haver even suggests that it can help people with depression that hasn't responded well to traditional antidepressants.
Oh, wow. So we've got diet, exercise, and even specific supplements that can support us during menopause.
Right.
But about stress management, that seems like a big one.
It is. Dr. Haver really stresses the importance of finding healthy coping mechanisms for stress, especially during this time.
So things like mindfulness, yoga, spending time in nature.
Yeah, anything that helps you de-stress and recharge.
And of course, we can't forget about sleep.
Oh, definitely. Sleep can be a huge challenge during menopause with those hot flashes and night sweats.
Ooh, tell me about it.
Right. Dr. Haver recommends a consistent sleep routine, a relaxing bedtime environment, and avoiding caffeine and alcohol before bed.
Oh, good advice. It sounds like we're building a toolkit of strategies to navigate these changes.
We are. It's about finding what works best for you and creating a personalized approach to menopause care.
Love it. Because as we've been saying, menopause isn't one size fits all. We all experience it differently.
Exactly. And the more we know about what's happening in our bodies, the better equipped we are to advocate for our own well-being.
Absolutely. Dr. Haver's insights are so empowering.
They are.
She really encourages us to take an active role in our health during this transformative phase of life.
She does. And there's one more area that often gets impacted during menopause that we haven't touched upon yet.
Okay.
And that's brain health.
Brain health. I'm intrigued. You know, we often hear about how menopause can affect things like our weight and metabolism.
Yeah.
But what about our hearts? Does that drop in estrogen impact cardiovascular health?
It's a good question. And honestly, it's one that hasn't always gotten the attention it deserves.
Really?
Yeah, for years people thought estrogen didn't play a big role in heart health. But Dr. Haver really challenges that idea.
So are you saying that women's heart health might have been kind of overlooked in the past?
Yeah, potentially. You see a lot of the research and even the medications for heart conditions have traditionally been based on men.
That's a bit concerning. I mean, if our biology is different, shouldn't our health care be different too?
Exactly. And that's a major point that Dr. Haver makes. Women's bodies are unique. We can't just assume that what works for men will work for us.
So how does this relate to menopause specifically?
Well, Dr. Haver explains that being menopausal is actually an independent risk factor for developing an unhealthy cholesterol profile.
Wait, so even if we're doing all the right things like eating well and exercising, our cholesterol can still go up just because of menopause?
That's what the research suggests. It seems that the decline in estrogen can really mess with our lipid levels.
Oh, no.
Leading to more of the bad cholesterol LDL and less of the good cholesterol HDL.
That's not good.
Yeah.
It's like our hearts are taking a double hit during menopause hormonal shifts and then this potential cholesterol roller coaster.
It's definitely something to be aware of. And it brings us back to hormone therapy, HRT.
Right, we were just talking about all the controversy surrounding it.
Exactly. Well, Dr. Haver actually presents some pretty compelling evidence that HRT, especially within the first 10 years of menopause, can protect against heart disease.
Hold on. So the thing that so many women are told to avoid might actually be good for their hearts.
It's possible. That's what her research indicates. Of course, it's not a blanket recommendation.
Of course.
And every woman needs to talk to her doctor to weigh the risks and benefits.
Yeah, it definitely challenges what we've been told to believe, though.
It does. The evidence is pretty strong, though. Dr. Haver points out that women who use HRT within that 10-year window have lower rates of heart attacks, cardiovascular disease, and even death from heart-related issues.
Those are some serious statistics.
Mhm.
It makes you wonder how many women are missing out on those benefits because of fear or misinformation.
It's a good point. It really emphasizes how important it is to have individualized care and make informed decisions.
For sure. We need to look at our own health history and circumstances and not just rely on old assumptions or generalizations.
Exactly. It's about empowering women to take control of their health.
I love that. Now, even if HRT isn't right for someone, there's still other things they can do to support their heart health during menopause, right?
Absolutely. Dr. Haver is a big believer in lifestyle changes.
Okay, so what's at the top of her list?
Well, surprise, surprise, she emphasizes a balanced diet.
Makes sense.
Remember those key nutrients we talked about, fiber, magnesium, and omega-3 fatty acids?
Yeah.
Those are all important for heart health, too.
So load up on the veggies, fruits, nuts, and seeds, and get those omega-3s from fatty fish.
Exactly. And don't forget about exercise.
Of course. What kind does she recommend?
She specifically suggests strength training to build muscle and bone density, which, as we know, tend to decline with age and hormonal changes.
Yeah, she's all about ditching the 80s cardio queen and hitting the weights.
She is. It's about building strength and functionality for long-term health.
And stress management is key too, right?
Huge chronic stress can really do a number on our bodies, including our hearts.
Yeah, no kidding. So what are some good ways to manage stress during menopause?
Well, Dr. Haver talks about things like mindfulness yoga, spending time in nature, or just doing activities you enjoy.
It's about finding what works for you.
Exactly. And prioritizing self-care. And that includes getting enough sleep.
Oh man, sleep can be tough during menopause.
It can. Those hot flashes and night sweats can really disrupt our sleep patterns.
Tell me about it. I feel like I'm in a sauna sometimes.
I hear you use. Dr. Haver recommends having a consistent sleep routine, creating a calming bedtime environment, and avoiding caffeine and alcohol before bed.
All good advice. And I think she mentioned that magnesium glycinate can be helpful for sleep as well.
She did. It's got those calming effects that can be really beneficial when hormones are keeping you up at night.
Okay, so we're talking diet, exercise, stress management, sleep. It's like we're building this whole toolbox of strategies to support our bodies.
We are. And the key is finding what works best for you and creating a personalized approach to menopause care.
Exactly. Because as we've said before, menopause is not one size fits all.
It's not. Each woman experiences it in her own way.
And the more we understand about what's happening in our bodies, the better equipped we are to advocate for our own needs.
Absolutely. Dr. Hayer's insights really encourage us to be proactive about our health.
I agree. She's all about taking an active role in our well-being during this time.
She is. And speaking of changes, there's another area that often gets affected during menopause.
What's that?
Our brains.
Brain health. That's interesting. We'll have to explore that connection in part 3. So brain health, huh? It's almost like a cliche now to joke about brain fog and forgetfulness during menopause.
It is like suddenly we're all misplacing our keys and forgetting appointments.
Right. But it's not really a laughing matter, though, is it?
Not really. It can be super frustrating and even a little scary.
For sure. So is there something specific happening in our brains during this time, or is it just like a random side effect of aging?
It's not random at all. It's actually connected to that drop in estrogen.
Ah, estrogen strikes again.
Yeah.
But what does estrogen even have to do with our brains?
Well, more than you might think, estrogen plays a huge role in brain function. It affects things like memory, focus, mood, even sleep.
Wow, I had no idea it was so involved in all of that.
Yeah.
So when estrogen levels go down, our brains basically take a hit.
Pretty much, Dr. Haver explains that estrogen actually helps protect brain cells from damage and encourages the growth of new brain cells.
Oh, wow. So it's like it's giving our brains a shield against those age-related changes.
Exactly. And when estrogen declines, our brains become more vulnerable to inflammation and oxidative stress,
Okay.
which can lead to those cognitive issues we experience.
So that explains the trouble concentrating, the forgetfulness, maybe even some of the mood swings we talked about.
Exactly. And some women even feel like their ADHD symptoms come back.
Really?
Yeah, they might struggle to focus, manage their time, stay organized.
It's like our brains are working against us, which can be so frustrating. So is there anything we can do to fight back, or are we just stuck with it?
The good news is it's not inevitable. Dr. Haver recommends a multi-pronged approach that includes lifestyle changes and, for some women, hormone therapy.
Okay, so break it down for us. What kind of lifestyle changes are we talking about?
Well, first she emphasizes those same dietary recommendations we've been discussing, fiber, magnesium, and omega-3 fatty acids.
Gotcha.
They're all super important for brain health.
Interesting. So it's not just about our physical health, but our mental sharpness, too.
Exactly. And then there's exercise.
Of course.
Dr. Haver recommends a combo of strength training and aerobic exercise.
Why both?
Well, they both help to improve blood flow to the brain and stimulate the growth of new brain cells.
Ah, so it's like giving our brains a workout.
It is.
Hmm.
And on top of the physical activity, she suggests engaging in mentally stimulating activities too.
Like what?
Things like reading puzzles, learning a new language, anything that challenges your mind and keeps it active.
It's all about keeping those neurons firing.
Exactly. Now, as for hormone therapy, that can be helpful for some women managing those cognitive symptoms.
Okay.
Dr. Haver believes it can be especially beneficial in the early stages of menopause.
So if you're really struggling with brain fog or memory problems, it might be worth exploring.
It is. Talk to your doctor about it. They can help you weigh the pros and cons based on your situation.
Because as we've been saying throughout this whole deep dive, menopause is not a one-size-fits-all experience.
Definitely. What works for one person might not work for another. It's about finding what works best for you and advocating for your individual needs.
Well said. And I think the biggest takeaway from all of this is that we don't just have to accept cognitive decline as an inevitable part of getting older.
Absolutely. There are things we can do to protect our brain health and stay sharp throughout menopause and beyond.
We can be proactive, informed, and take charge of our well-being.
Dr. Haver's insights are so empowering. She shows us that menopause isn't the end. It's a new beginning.
A time to prioritize ourselves, explore new things, embrace the wisdom and strength that come with age.
And to do that, we need to be informed, advocate for ourselves, and make choices that support our physical, mental, and emotional health.
Couldn't have said it better myself. And as Dr. Haver so perfectly puts it, menopause is inevitable, but suffering isn't.
Such a great quote. It reminds us that we have the power to make choices that support our health and happiness at every stage of life.
So true. Well, we hope this deep dive has given you some helpful insights and empowered you to embrace menopause as a natural and transformative part of life. Remember, knowledge is power, and you have the power to make choices that support your health and happiness. Thanks for joining us.